Hi and welcome back to Music 154. Today we're going to go over analysis, a step-by-step process for simple binary forms. Alright, once again, a reminder, all the formal units that we're going to talk about, the highest being sections A and B with capital letters. Then we go down from sections into phrases, which are typically 4 measures, ideas, which are 2 measures, motives, which are 1, and then we're going to look out for sentence or period structure. Alright, here is another Haydn minuet. This is one from when he was a very young person. The first thing I'd like to do is listen to it. That's the first step in any analysis. Listen to the piece. So let's give this one a listen. Okay, great. Now that we've done that, we want to do the Roman numeral analysis. And again, I have not done the Roman numeral analysis in the video. I've done it beforehand because it's going to take a lot of time and you already know how to do this stuff. One question you might have about my Roman numerals, however, is how did you do that, Dr. Beerson, with only 2 notes per chord? Look, you have 1 note in the right hand, 1 note in the left. And then if you pay closer attention, you'll see that the opening first 2 bars are unisons. It's the same notes, well, actually octaves, in both hands. So how do you come up with 5, 6, 5 there? Well, there's this thing called the rule of the octave, and at some point in the semester I'm going to share it with you. I'll make a video for it. I'll also include it in the lesson comment, or include a PDF of it. But basically, if you know how the rule of the octave works and how certain notes in the bass or certain notes in the soprano imply certain harmonies, then you can come up with the Roman numerals that I have. One thing that came out to me right away as I was doing my Roman numeral analysis is that, well, this is simple binary form. So we've got an A section and then a contrasting B section, and that is it. Okay, so this is the simple version of the binary form. The other thing was that the beginning part, I have an IAC with a question mark. I really felt like the A section broke down into period structure with 2 4-bar phrases. However, the first 4-bar phrase, as you can see, does not end with a cadence in the bass. There's a nice cadence in the soprano from scale degree 4 to scale degree 3 with an appoggiatura. Ooh, very nice and decorated. However, normally for an IAC, you want to have a nice 5-1 bass, and we don't have that here. So how are you going to call it a cadence? Well, I can't. I'm not going to lie. However, it's not in sentence form either, right? It's not like a 2-measure basic idea and then another 2-measure basic idea and then a continuation of the cadence. It's 2 measures and then I'll call this a cadence for now, okay, with a question mark, and then the same 2 measures and then another cadence, this one a PAC. And this one is clearly a PAC because it's got a nice predominant going to cadential 6/4 and then it resolves to the 1. And the soprano has scale degree 1 in it. Okay, so all this information put together makes me feel like I'm just going to have to go ahead and call that an IAC of some kind. Because to me, this A section is a period, it is not a sentence. Going with that, the 2-measure ideas break down like this. There it goes, with the pickup included, right? And then the next pickup takes you into the next 2-measure idea. And the next phrase, same as the first two measure idea. And the second part is the cadence, and this time it's the different cadence, it's the PAC. Motivically, I have motive X being a note going down and then back up with a slur, and then a pick up and then down, back up with a slur. Okay? Happens here in both voices in the beginning because they're playing the same notes. There's no other counterpoint going on here. But again, there is implied harmony, which I've labeled. But the idea is you want a step down and then a move back up with a slur, step down, move back up with a slur, and then you'll notice when the next two measure idea begins, all that's gone, right? Because this is my cadential move. Again, no cadence in the bass, but the two measure idea from before had that X motive, and now we don't have that. We have a cadence. Then the same thing happens here. We have motive X in the second phrase of the period for the opening two measure idea, and it's only motive X. There's no motive Y in this piece. And then we've got another motion to a cadence here, this being a more conventional PAC. All right, let's take a look now at the second half of the piece. This is the B section. All right, so I've got my phrase marked off with a big slur over there until the half cadence. This time, again, we have a conventional half cadence. And then another slur marks the PAC here. Okay, so far so good. Two measure idea, two measure idea. Again, each of these begins with the pickup note and ends with the second beat of the measure, and the next one begins with the pickup note and ends with the second beat of the measure. Two measure idea, and notice also motive X prime, I'm calling it this time because now we've got this little chromaticism involved and it's a step down. So here's a little contrast with the B section, right? Motive X is now flipped upside down and it features some chromaticism. And then another motive X begins the second phrase. Okay, and notice that the first two measure idea consists of motive X or X prime, whereas the second two measure idea of each phrase features a move to a cadence. This time it's a half cadence in the B section, and then it's a PAC. All right, so this is a completed analysis. Notice that I got my Roman numerals all laid out there on the bottom. I've got my sections marked off on the side there, and I've got inside of my sections my phrases, my two measure ideas, and my motives. Okay, and I really like this piece because it is a one motive piece. Let's give it a listen. Okay, this is actually a piece that is taken from a rondo by Mozart, and it's kind of in the middle of the piece. Okay, but it's still a simple binary form that you can just pull out of the middle of a piece and analyze in isolation. With this one, it's not a minuet, and I don't get the sense that it's a dance piece at all. I think this is more a song. And when I say song, I mean think about theater, think about opera. Imagine an opera character singing on stage, and there's an orchestra behind her, and she's singing a very emotional aria. Okay? And let's, with that in mind, give this one a listen. So with the earlier Haydn minuet, we kind of could imagine dancing. With Mozart, in this example, we can imagine the theater. Okay, all of these simple forms, they actually come from the culture of that time period. So in those days, they had these European courtly dance moves, and they had theater and opera music. And so when we're listening to this music, it's always a good idea to imagine the society that this music came from. And if you were to apply any of these analytical techniques to music of today, you also want to do that same kind of thing. I mean, when I listen to Duke Ellington, for example, I always imagine a nightclub in New York City in the 1940s. And it works every time. Okay, there's certain characters that find themselves into the music of a certain time period, and the music reflects the characters found in real life in that time. All right, so now that we've listened to it, we've enjoyed it, we've absorbed all of the musical ideas, let's take a look now at the Roman numerals. Okay, this is the next step in the process. After listening, you want to do a Roman numeral analysis and label cadences. Once again, I have done that in advance. I am trusting that you can do a Roman numeral analysis at this stage, and now we're looking at how these things fit into musical form. All right, so I have an A section and then a B section. Also, don't be fooled by the fact that my screen has 3 systems of music. It's just that there was a lot of notes in this example, and so I couldn't put one line for the A section and one line for the B section because it just didn't fit. So I had to break it up in a way that sort of, made it visible to everybody, made all the notation visible. But this is a simple binary form. Okay, there's an A section and there's a B section. Looking at the first A section, I don't have any cadences until measure 8. And again, I would have noticed this during the Roman numeral analysis. So I put a large slur over the first 8 measures. You can see that because of the system break, I had to use a slur that doesn't end and then pick up on the second system and then finish the slur in the half cadence. All right, this to me, because there's no cadence in the middle, and because of the sound of that opening and the way that it pushes through towards the end, is like a sentence kind of a structure. So I've got a first 2-measure idea and then a second 2-measure idea. And then the rest of that music afterwards is moving towards a cadence. And you can see that Mozart's already kind of picking up the harmonic pace, right? In measure 4 already, it's picking up, and you've got these forte piano sforzandos happening really quick. And then you've got this motion now in the left hand with the Alberti bass. So everything is kind of moving faster and faster and faster towards the end of this section, which is why I'm calling it a sentence. Because remember, the sentence kind of starts 2 measures and then 2 measures, and then it fragments and liquidates and moves faster by harmonic motion towards the end. And I feel like this happens here, really. So I'm going to call this a sentence type A section. Inside of that, I have really motive X, which is a note on a downbeat and then an 8th rest accompanying it with 3 8th notes. Okay, that's kind of what I have going on as a motive passing through the hands. Okay, first it's the left hand that has the 8th notes, then it's the right hand, then it's the left hand, then it's the right hand. Okay, and it just goes like that for the first 1, 2, 3 measures. Then we get this passage moving into the continuation part. And here I've labeled this as motive Y. You've got your Alberti bass getting started, and then you've got 2 8th notes, and it's like a sighing motive going into a long half note and then jumping up to a quarter note. Okay, so I'm going to call this whole thing here motive Y. Cool thing about this is that you've got your 1/6, then your little chromatic line applied 5/6 of 5 to 5/6 of 4 to 4, and then from the 4 you go to a augmented 6th chord, and that ends on a 5 for the half cadence. So this is a very powerful, and that's why I think it's so theatrical. It's a very powerful harmonic progression going to the half cadence. All right, now let's take a look at our B section. This B section has two cadences. You've got your augmented sixth chord here at the very end going to a 5 and then a rest, so you've got a half cadence. And then you've got this music here leading to a PAC here. So I feel like a period structure going on here. So I've marked my first phrase leading up to the half cadence, and I've marked my second phrase leading up to the PAC at the end. But again, this is another one of those really ambiguous situations. Let's take a little bit of a deeper dive. I've got my 2-measure idea. Okay, starting off here, forte, downbeat, half note in the left hand, and then the eighth notes in the right hand. Same thing, and then it flips, right? Same thing here, and then the next 2-measure idea kind of goes across the systems here. Ends with my half cadence. Okay, it's a 1/6 chromatic scale going down. That last note there is accompanied with an augmented sixth chord, and then half cadence. Now watch this. This next 2-measure idea and this next 2-measure idea are very similar to what happened before in my sentence structure. So I've got the Alberti bass and the eighth notes and the half note, and I feel like this is kind of like what the continuation was before, but it's actually starting the second period of what appears to be, or the second phrase of what appears to be a period. So again, there's kind of these ambiguous situations that you just kind of have to imagine in your mind, and you have to use your musical common sense and decide how to label something. All right, we've got our phrases down, we've got our 2-measure ideas down, and let's take a look now at the motives. I'm calling this X prime because, again, it's a strong downbeat in one hand, and in the other hand you've got 3 eighth notes after an eighth note rest. So it's kind of like what happened here. Piano, 1 note, and then sort of an accompaniment figure. And here it's contrasting because it's forte, it's more intense, right? You've got this now octaves in the left hand and octaves in the right hand, and but however it's the same rhythmic profile. So I'm calling that motive X prime. Okay, and now in the second phrase here, I've got the return of motive Y again, because there's the Alberti bass and the 2 eighth notes and the half note and a quarter note, and that's the same thing that was happening here. This time, however, it's a 2-measure idea because it breaks off with a fermata on a 7 diminished 4/3 with this rolling chord, and then it picks up with the last 2 measures for the PAC at the end. Okay, so this is a 16-measure simple binary form, and this analysis is now complete. Okay, we've gone from the sections to the phrases to the ideas, and we've done the motivic analysis. And when you do the motivic analysis, you start to see really cool connections. And there's usually not too many motives in these pieces. It's like X or Y, sometimes a Z, but it's really 2 motives, and look at how much music you can get out of that. It's so wonderful. All right, now that we've analyzed it, let's listen again with a more informed ear. Alright guys, so that's simple binary form. And remember that simple and rounded binary form are the 2 simplest structures we have for formal units. And little by little we're going to lead up to sonata form.